The story begins with a young boy playing in the forest. He notices a bright golden light and goes to investigate. From the light, a girl and an old man emerge. The girl asks the boy for his name, and he introduces himself as Satou. She introduces herself as Hime Nanoka and requests that Satou keep what he saw a secret. Hime suggests that it's best to forget about it, but in return, she promises to be his friend. Satou feels a strong urge to protect her and decides to keep that thought with him forever. 10 years pass, and Hime wakes up Satou. She has prepared breakfast for him, and Satou is impressed by the luxurious meal. Hime mentions that it's the start of summer break, and she woke up early without realizing it. Satou recalls that Hime Nanoka is his childhood friend, and she moved into the house next door a decade ago. She lives with her grandfather since she doesn't have parents. Satou notices that Hime has changed a lot since starting high school, particularly her physical appearance, and he playfully teases her about it. Hime explains that deliberately keeping a low profile would only draw more attention to her unique hair, and she believes that, as a princess, it's essential for her to be strong. Satou recalls that Hime has been referring to herself as a princess since childhood, and she playfully gets close to him, making him feel embarrassed. However, all she does is pick a grain of rice from around his mouth and eat it, easing his embarrassment. The scene transitions to the two of them leaving for school, where they greet Hime's grandfather before heading out. On the way, Hime inquires if Satou's father is still not home, and he explains that his father won't return until after summer break. Hime expresses sympathy, but Satou assures her that he's used to it. Satou also notices the rings on Hime's neck, which remind him of the promise they made as children. In their childhood, Hime had told him that these rings were meant for the man she would marry someday, and she asked Satou to marry her when they grew up. However, now she playfully tells him she won't give them to him because they're important to her. Satou thinks to himself that childhood promises shouldn't be taken seriously, and the scene shifts to their arrival at school. Hime proudly shows off her test scores to her friends, who praise her for her intelligence. Hime mentions that, as a princess, it's her duty to be smart, prompting her friends to wonder which country's princess she represents. Meanwhile, Satou talks with some of his friends, and one of them comments on how great it must be to have a girlfriend, noting that Satou comes to school with Hime every day. Satou explains that they walk together because she lives next door. As he's chatting with his friends, Satou receives a message from Hime inviting him to the summer festival. She instructs him to meet her in front of the shrine at 6 in the evening. Satou is curious why she's sending him a message, but he believes it's okay to be hopeful. Later, Satou meets Hime at a shrine and is surprised by her yukata outfit. Hime playfully asks if he's captivated by her appearance, and Satou admits he is, which makes Hime blush. They both enjoy the festival together. Hime expresses her excitement for festivals and recalls a childhood memory of getting lost in one. Satou had held her hand to keep them from getting separated, and Hime thought he was cool back then. Satou wonders if he's still cool now, and Hime playfully says she doesn't know, suggesting they get some food. Hime buys Choco Banana, and at a shooting stall, she asks Satou to win a stuffed toy for her. Satou hesitates, worried about their relationship, but he also doesn't want things to stay the same. He wins the toy for her, and they watch fireworks at the shrine. Satou tries to confess his feelings during the fireworks, but he's interrupted, and Hime mentions that the fireworks are beautiful. She expresses her gratitude for watching them together. Suddenly, she reveals a secret. She's decided to move. Satou is surprised and asks when she's leaving. She tells him she's leaving for her grandfather's hometown the next day. They return to their apartment building, and Hime thanks Satou for the wonderful night watching the fireworks. Satou asks if she really has to leave, but Hime ignores him, saying he gave her a memorable night. In bed, Satou wonders where Hime is going, realizing he thought he knew everything about her but actually knew nothing. Satou notices a golden light coming from the mountains, reminding him of the day he first met Hime. He goes to the source and finds Hime there. He asks her not to go, and Hime is surprised that Satou remembers their first meeting. She admits she lied about moving away and is leaving for a different world. She reveals she's going to get married as she's a princess. She bids farewell to Satou, who decides he won't just watch her leave. He steps into the golden light, waking up in a palace where he witnesses Hime marrying a prince. Wedding attendees are surprised to see Satou, and the priest asks Hime to perform the sacred kiss. Satou calls out to Hime, and the prince questions who he is. A monster then enters the palace, known as an abyssal creature. Hime's grandfather, Alabaster, tries to fight it but is distracted by seeing Satou in this world, leading to the monster defeating him. Alabaster, Hime's grandfather, asks Hime to give the ring of light to the prince. Still, Hime notices that Satou is in danger and kisses him instead. She gives him her ring, and the prince believes Princess Crystal has made her decision. He hands Satou a sword, leaving Satou confused about what to do with it. The monster approaches him, and the sword and ring start to glow. Satou slashes the monster in one strike, then faints. When he wakes up in bed, he asks Hime where he is. Hime informs him they're in the royal couple's bedchamber, and she explains they shared the kiss of the oath. Satou wonders if this means Hime loves him. Hime reveals she was supposed to marry the prince, but knew nothing about him, so she chose Satou when she saw a familiar face. Satou can't believe this is why Hime chose him, and Hime apologizes for making him her hero. Later, maids discuss the Ring King, who came from another world and defeated an abyssal creature with a single strike. Later, Satou meets with some important people in the palace. They whisper about how the wedding was supposed to make the relationship between the Empire and the Kingdom of Light stronger. They worry that when the king finds out, he'll be very angry. The prince, however, explains that the man chosen by the Ring Princess is the Ring King, the savior of the world. Both he and Satou are just following their destiny to save the world, regardless of what the king thinks. People in the room gossip about how the second prince is very proud of himself. Alabaster, Hime's grandfather, clarifies that he brought the Ring King here because they wanted to meet him. He introduces Satou to the entire kingdom, and Satou feels nervous being in the spotlight. Alabaster asks Satou to say something, and Satou notices the cheering crowd. Alabaster tells Satou that everyone has been waiting for the Ring King, and he represents hope for their world. Encouraged by the support, Satou proclaims himself as the Ring King, someone who has come from another world to save them all, their hero. The scene shifts to Satou taking a bath, where he reflects on his earlier words. Unexpectedly, Hime joins him in the bath. She explains that they are officially married, and she asks Satou not to look at her. They bathe together, and Hime apologizes for causing trouble for Satou. She acknowledges that he was never meant to be a part of this situation, but Satou reassures her that he's willing to stay. Satou explains that the monster from yesterday was after her, and the ring she carried. Since he's the only one who can save her, he won't leave her side. Hime recalls how when she first started school, everyone avoided her because of her unusual hair color, but Satou was different. He came to her rescue, and she thanks him. Satou, with a mischievous glance, attempts to sneak a peek at Hime's chest, but she covers herself and says that royal family weddings are merely formality. She insists that she only made him her husband by accident, and he shouldn't feel responsible. Satou agrees but expresses his happiness at being chosen by Hime. She asks if he likes her a lot, and he confirms it, calling her his most important friend. They hear bells ringing outside and wonder what's happening. Rushing to the palace gate, they discover that soldiers are speculating about their activities in the bedroom. Hime clarifies that they haven't been intimate yet. The soldiers inform them that they are under attack by abyssal creature and that the monster Satou defeated earlier was likely a scout. They request Satou's assistance, despite his lack of combat experience. Hime interjects, expressing concern for Satou's safety. Alabaster reminds them that Satou must fight since he possesses the ring. They equip Satou with an axe and explain that the Ring of Light is a powerful weapon against the abyss, capable of banishing evil. Although Satou is unsure about the world's situation, he is determined to save Hime's life and agrees to help. Before Satou leaves, Hime kisses him and asks him to vanquish the evil creatures and save their world from turmoil. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The story begins in a mysterious and dangerous red zone where bodies are falling like flies. Amidst this chaos, a young boy is searching for someone named Asaka. While navigating through the numerous dead bodies, he comes across woman holding Asaka hostage at gunpoint. Asaka is pleading for her life, but woman remains threatening and warns the young boy not to interfere, or she will kill the hostage. Despite her threats, she suddenly dies just by the boy's intense stare. His ability to kill with just a look, even though unintentional, leaves Asaka shocked at the boy's immense power. The narrative then shifts to the young boy, now asleep on a school bus. His classmate, Tomochika, is trying to wake him up amidst a terrible situation, despite the chaos around him. Including a dragon attacking their bus and the deaths of other students, the boy remains undisturbed in his sleep. Tomochika realizes she needs the boy's help to survive. She wakes him up and he distracts the dragon, but it becomes angrier and threatens them with its fiery breath. Just when the situation seems dire, the dragon is suddenly killed, thanks to the boy's unique and deadly ability. His name is Yagiri, and he possesses a power called instant death magic. After the dragon's death, Tomochika is in shock and wants to understand what happened. However, Yagiri is more interested in playing a video game and decides to wait until Tomochika calms down. His relaxed attitude amuses Tomochika, and she starts to act more normally. They engage in a conversation where Yagiri asks Tomochika about what happened while he was asleep. She recounts the events, starting with a sunny day when their school bus left for a tour. However, the trip quickly turned into a nightmare. After passing through a tunnel, the bus entered a strange meadow, a new and curious place for everyone. However, their peace is shattered when a powerful and dangerous sage enters the bus and kills their teacher for interrupting her. This act instills fear in everyone. The sage claims to have immense power in this alternate world, a place where survival is a constant battle. She kills the bus driver as well, showcasing her strength. She then informs the students that they are in a world where sages dominate, and everyone must struggle to survive. The students are forced to serve this sage, who needs them to stay relevant in this world's power dynamics. The sage uses a magical glow to install a battle song system in the students, essentially turning them into her servants in this perilous world. Unlike the others, they don't glow with the magical energy given by the sage. They are in invisible portals, where they can see their assigned tasks, ranks, powers, rewards, and the time they have left. The sage has set a 1-month deadline for all the passengers to reach the status of a sage. Tomochika learns she's been labeled incompatible by the automatic recruiting system. The sage decides she's not fit for the tasks and assigns her to take care of the livestock to earn mana, a type of magical energy. Her first mission, which starts in an hour, is to avoid and fight a dragon. After the sage leaves, everyone gets busy with their tasks. One student becomes their leader, responsible for managing everyone's status. He can give orders and make decisions for the group. This proud leader decides to use Tomochika, Yagiri, and the other two as bait to distract an incoming dragon, allowing the rest of the group to reach the town safely. He has more powers than the others, and he uses this advantage to control them. They feel powerless and resigned to their fate, waiting for the dragon. Yagiri continues to sleep, unaffected by the extreme stress around him. When the dragon attacks the bus, breaking windows and damaging it severely, the situation becomes dire. One girl, feeling hopeless, gives up and dies instantly. The story then reveals that Yagiri learns about all these events after waking up from his sleep. Upon hearing the tragic tale of deaths and monsters, Yagiri's main concern is to charge his handheld game, which frustrates Tomochika. She expects a more emotional reaction, but he remains calm, unaffected by the recent chaos. Tomochika urges him to take the situation seriously. Yagiri then steps out of the damaged bus to assess the situation. He concludes that the dead dragon poses no further danger, and they need to find a way to solve their current predicament. Tomochika is still trying to understand how they survived the attack of the giant monster. She questions Yagiri about any hidden powers he might have, but he remains quiet, suggesting that their survival was just luck or fate. Suddenly, they see a student flying towards them with 2 helpers. This group is surprised to find the dragon dead and 2 survivors. They wonder how Yagiri and Tomochika, who seem like ordinary students without special powers or ranks, managed to kill the monster. These flying students are relieved because, with the dragon engaged, they had time to escape. They don't care about others, only their own survival. Yagiri feels like attacking these selfish students, but Tomochika, still kind-hearted, stops him. Yagiri knows that these students came with the intent to kill them. One of the helpers, who has healing powers, wanted to turn Tomochika's body into a zombie, but this plan fails. The leader of this group then tries to kill Tomochika with a giant fireball. She narrowly escapes, and the fireball destroys the meadow. The power of these students is evident from the destruction they caused. They try to intimidate and manipulate Tomochika, but she resists. Yagiri decides it's time to act. He tells Tomochika to stay quiet and stands in front of her to protect her. He points at one of the attackers and simply says, "Die." The attacker falls dead, shocking his companions. They can't believe their leader died so easily. The remaining 2 are terrified. They try to revive their leader but fail, and another one dies. The healer is the only one left. He's too scared to move, fearing Yagiri might kill him too. The fear in his eyes is evident, and he follows Yagiri's commands without question. Yagiri considers explaining his powers, but decides to let the healer check if his partners are really dead. He wants the healer to have no doubts about his abilities. The healer tries to use his powers to revive his fallen comrades, believing his magic can heal any wound. However, his magic fails, and he ends up surrendering to Yagiri, kneeling in front of him, acknowledging Yagiri's superior power. Yagiri explains his unique abilities. He didn't mention them earlier when the dragon died because he wasn't interested in doing so. However, now he feels it's necessary to explain, especially since the healer might try to challenge him otherwise. Tomochika, witnessing all this, is astonished by Yagiri's incredible power. Despite not having the magical glow of a sage, Yagiri possesses an extraordinary ability. He can instantly kill anyone he targets simply by deciding to do so. This power works without the need for any physical action or special equipment. The healer initially doubts Yagiri's abilities, finding them hard to believe, but when Yagiri threatens to demonstrate his power on him, the healer becomes terrified and quickly agrees to understand and accept what Yagiri is saying. However, despite this apparent understanding, the healer still contemplates betraying Yagiri. He tries to use a ball of killing magic against Yagiri, but he fails. Yagiri has another remarkable ability. He can sense any intent to harm him even from a distance and can instantly kill the attacker. These two abilities make Yagiri an exceptional and fearsome fighter in this alternate world. The healer, realizing Yagiri's power and his own inability to challenge him, feels disappointed and recognizes his helplessness in the face of Yagiri's superior abilities. This realization marks a turning point in the healer's attitude, as he now understands the extent of Yagiri's powers and his own limitations. Yagiri confronts the healer, Hime, questioning his boldness in attacking him despite witnessing the deaths of his partners. Hime reveals that he has been in this alternate world longer than Yagiri and the others, summoned here by the mages of the Aman Kingdom. He explains that in this world, they are required to fight for a year and defeat a demon king before returning home. Interestingly, their absence is barely noticed in the real world, where only a few hours pass for every year spent in this alternate realm. The healer adds that time stops for them in this world, allowing them to complete their tasks without worrying about time passing in the real world. Hearing this, Yagiri realizes they have a chance to return home. He contemplates killing the healer to reduce future threats, but the healer pleads for his life, looking desperately at Tomochika for support. Tomochika, indebted to Yagiri for saving her, feels unable to intervene. In a twist, the healer offers to become Tomochika's slave in exchange for his life. However, Tomochika suggests enslaving Yagiri instead, believing he deserves it more. A magical belt, designed to enslave the first person it sees, recognizes Tomochika as its master. Tomochika, not wanting to enslave anyone, transfers the belt's control to Yagiri. The healer, fearing Yagiri's powers, resists but is unable to stop the process. Yagiri becomes the master and decides to let the healer live out of generosity. However, wanting to distance himself from the healer, he sends him to a forest filled with dangerous beasts. The healer tries to resist, but the magical belt, obeying Yagiri's commands, forces him towards the forest. Yagiri, seizing the opportunity, commands the healer not to disclose their encounter to anyone and to hand over all his valuable possessions. The healer struggles, but the belt ensures compliance, leaving him penniless and headed towards a perilous fate. Tomochika, observing Yagiri's actions, starts to believe he might have feelings for her. However, Tekadu's flirtatious remarks annoy her. Meanwhile, Sage Sion's reporter informs her of the deaths of 2 high-ranking candidates and 2 commoners, possibly due to instant death magic. Sione, skeptical, thinks there might be a reporting error and decides to investigate later. This situation highlights the complex dynamics and unexpected events in this alternate world, where power struggles and magical abilities create a constantly shifting landscape of alliances and conflict. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The story kicks off with those 2 school popular kids strutting down the hallway like they own the place, and everyone can't stop chattering about them. Suzyun, she's the big shot student council president. And there's this certified nerd named Kazuki, tagging along as her sidekick, also the vice president. Some folks just naturally become the center of attention. But our main man, Yuzato, well, he doesn't see himself that way. Yuzato's your regular Joe. Thinks of himself as just an ordinary high school student. The most thrilling thing in his plain life is helping pigeon babies find their nest. Deep down, though, he secretly wishes for something extraordinary. Now, here's the kicker. It's raining cats and dogs, and Yuzato's caught without an umbrella. He thinks about snatching someone else's, but he's a good guy, or at least he likes to think he is. He doesn't want to kickstart a life of crime over an umbrella, so he lets the opportunity slide. Dumb move, because now he's stuck waiting in the rain for hours. Out of nowhere, Suzyun pops up. She tells him that all students have to scram. Let me tell you, Yuzato is so forgettable that he was ready to just run home soaking wet. But Suzyun isn't having it. She's thinking it would be bad for the student council's image to let him turn into a soggy loser right before their eyes. Then, Kazuki appears on the scene and lends Yuzato his extra umbrella. Yuzato thought Kazuki didn't even know he existed. But surprise, he's actually a nice guy. They suggest walking home together, and Suzyun thinks it's fate that they met. Yuzato, being a bit of a nerd, compares it to hitting the jackpot, walking home with 2 of the most popular kids in school. He almost blows it by saying everyone will be jealous of him, but luckily they didn't catch his cringe-worthy comment. Yuzato tells Kazuki that he didn't expect him to be so friendly because he usually sees him as a ladies' man. But Kazuki explains that he talks to the girls out of pity. Suzyun teases him, saying he prefers talking to boys anyway. Suzyun, on the other hand, seems even more out of reach for Yuzato. She's a straight-A student and a sports whiz. That only adds to Yuzato's admiration. And he mentions she's beautiful inside and out. Yuzato, playing the part of a clueless gossip reporter, then pops the big question, are they dating? After all, everyone in school is buzzing about it. The conversation gets awkward, but they clarify that they spend so much time together because they're on the student council. Yuzato blushes with embarrassment, realizing he shouldn't have asked such a dumb question. but Suzune is cool about it. She'd rather they discuss it openly than gossip behind their backs. Suzune explains that she feels like she doesn't belong in this world, and Yuzato was shocked. The two of them are totally opposite people, but he understands that feeling. They all stop when Suzune and Kazuki hear bells ringing. The ringing gets louder and louder, but Yuzato doesn't hear a single thing. Just as Yuzato approaches the others, a magic circle appears on the ground, and he wonders if it's a gate to another world. Instead of being terrified, Suzune looks like a psycho and wonders if Yuzato thinks they will find magic monsters and heroes in this other world. Yuzato is shocked that she's into that kind of stuff, but time is up and they are taken away. Yuzato eventually wakes up and finds that they are sitting in front of a king. The boys are rightfully terrified and cautious, but something is wrong with Suzune's brain as she only feels excitement. The king then introduces himself as Lloyd. Kazuki wants to skip the introductions, though, and demands to know why Lloyd brought them there. Lloyd keeps his calm and reveals that he is the king. Both of them are shocked by this, except for Suzune, who is having the time of her life. Lloyd then reveals that they were summoned to be heroes, making all of Suzune's dreams come true. 2 years ago, this world was attacked by the king of demons and his army. They managed to drive them off, but the demon lord's power has been growing. As a last resort, they called forth accomplished individuals from another world who can confront a demon lord using a forbidden ritual known as hero summoning. Yuzato tries to remind the excited Suzune that they're having a serious conversation, and Kazuki goes all crazy. He doesn't care about heroes or demon lords and is just furious that they were summoned without consent, demanding that they get sent back to their world. The king explains that the hero summoning only works in one direction, so they can't go back. Kazuki still wants to go back to his family, but the king apologizes as they are desperate for help. Kazuki's whining marathon pushes the guards to finally quiet him down by threatening Yuzato to calm Kazuki down. The king shockingly bows before them and promises to find them a way back eventually, but he begs that these heroes help him in the meantime. Suzune finally stops fangirling over being ice-skated and wonders why the king calls them heroes without knowing anything about them. A mage named Welsie explains that the hero summoning is designed to select accomplished individuals. She explains that hearing the bells ring before being summoned indicates that they are heroes. That's actually some pretty bad news for our boy Yuzato, though, as he was the only one that didn't hear ringing, and he wonders if he was brought by accident. Welsie then takes them to a crystal ball that measures their magical abilities. Kazuki wonders if Yuzato is really okay with this, but our boy is just fine since Welsie told him that he might be able to use magic even though he is not a hero. Kazuki thinks Yuzato should be more upset, but our boy isn't a whiny little dweeb like him, and he points out that they should try to be like Suzune, who is overly positive in this situation. She is the first to be tested, and the color of the crystal indicates her affinity for thunder magic. As if that weren't amazing enough, she also has a ton of mana. Suzune couldn't be any happier. Now, it is Kazuki's turn. This guy barely touches the thing, and Welsie is amazed when the crystal turns white. It's light magic, and Suzune is certain that it means he can shoot laser beams out of his eyes. Or even better, he might be able to use swords made of light. Yuzato points out that Kazuki isn't a weirdo like her and probably has no clue what she is talking about, but she scolds him for having a sharp tongue. Suzune realizes that she likes his tongue that way, and Yuzato's perfect image of Suzune is getting ruined every time she talks. Well, Welsie explains that light magic is incredibly rare, and few people can use it. Light repels evil, so its power is unparalleled against demons. The bar has been set pretty high by the first two, but now it's our boy's turn. Yuzato hopes that he will at least have the tiniest bit of power, as this humble kid just hopes to help Suzune and Kazuki anyway. Yuzato is glad when his crystal actually changes color, and everyone thinks it's a soothing color. But a look at Welsie paints a totally different picture. She is shocked by this color change and instantly drags Yuzato away without saying a single thing. Welsie urgently takes him to the king and explains that the other two have great abilities. However, she is there about something more important. The king has a good chuckle as he jokes about Yuzato having an affinity for dark magic, but he is shut up when Welsie reveals that the crystal ball turned green. The guards are even shocked, and Welsie begins to finally say what that means. King Lloyd stops her, though, as he doesn't even want her to utter those words. Yuzato begins to wonder if his magic affinity is really that bad. Our boy just has to remain confused, though, as the king quickly demands that Yuzato be taken away from the castle as quickly as possible. They try to think of the safest place to send him, and Yuzato wonders if he's really that dangerous. He asks if anyone else has the same magic, and there just so happens to be another person. It's a certain girl, but the king doesn't even want her name to be spoken. Unfortunately for the king and his cowardice, this girl barges in, and everyone is terrified beyond belief. We find out that her name is Rose, and she wants to know if the heroes have been summoned. The king was really hoping that she took the day off, but Rose would never do such a thing. She questions if Usato was a hero, but King Lloyd explains that he's just some nerd that got teleported there by accident. The king desperately tries to hide the truth and tells her that Usato is superordinary. Rose asks for Usato's name, and she introduces herself to him as a captain of the kingdom's rescue team. But Usato feels that she is more like the type to take lives, not save them. Wellesley interrupts them and offers to take Rose to the real heroes in the crystal room. Unfortunately, Usato is an idiot who can't read the room and asks the king what his green color crystal meant. Rose is still within hearing distance, so everyone is terrified by what's about to happen. Rose asks if his crystal is really green, and Usato confirms that his ball is green. Rose tells the king that she will be borrowing the boy. The king decides that he must act quickly and gently tells Wellesley to get Usato away from her. Wellesley uses some kind of bubble magic to quickly get him out of there, but Rose instantly takes off after him. Wellesley sends our non-hero sky high, but Rose is able to get to him almost immediately. She is crazy powerful as she destroys the bubble and rapidly captures Usato. Everyone is left with their mouths open from shock like a bunch of guppy fish. Rose tells the king that she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Wellesley can't handle what will happen moving forward, so she faints and the king begs Rose to stop. He knows that she has been searching for other healing magic users, but he tries to explain that Usato was really dragged into this by accident. His useless words go completely ignored as the two are already gone. Back in the castle, Usato's useless new friends have just been sitting on their stupid hands this entire time, but they are shocked to hear that Usato was taken away. Wellesley explains that his life is not going to be ended, but it's still really bad news. He was taken to the rescue team just beyond the castle town. Healing magic users are extremely rare, and the crazy lady that took him is one of them. She intends to train Usato as her subordinate. No matter how hard Susan uses her dumb brain, she can't see how this is a problem. Luckily, Wellesley explains it to her like she's a toddler and reveals that Rose's training methods are extremely unorthodox. At Rose's base, Rose explains that Usato only has the potential to become a healing magic user, which is why she brought him to the rescue team. This will be his new home, and she introduces him to her team. Usato is terrified of these intimidating individuals, and Rose instructs them to look after him. She tells them to be kind, but they appear rather bizarre and introduce themselves. Usato's imagination runs wild, fearing the worst and wondering if he's some sort of sacrifice to these strange people. Rose tries to reassure Usato and tells her team not to scare him, but she herself appears to be the most intimidating. Her team attempts to explain that they are being nice, but Usato doubts they understand the concept of kindness. Rose clarifies that while her team consists of tough-looking individuals, they are not healing magic users. There are 2 other healing magic users on the rescue team, but they usually work elsewhere. It's time to get down to business, and Rose explains that she will teach Usato how to use healing magic extensively. Usato remains in a constant state of disbelief, with every instinct telling him to steer clear of this eccentric group. He timidly asks Rose if he could learn from another teacher, but she disregards his request and informs him that training will commence tomorrow. She instructs one of her subordinates, Tom, to allow Usato to stay in his room and advises them to have dinner and rest. After Rose leaves, her team delivers a harsh reality check to Usato, informing him that he's in a difficult situation. Rose will be personally training him, and it won't be easy. They even suggest that facing hell might be the least of his worries, and they share a good laugh. That night, Usato contemplates what lies ahead. Despite his initial fears, he begins to feel a glimmer of optimism, believing that things might turn out okay. However, uncertainty lingers, as even Rose herself doesn't seem to know what the future holds. This brings an end to our episode. For the next part of the story, subscribe to our channel. The story is about a man named Sasaki who starts his day by taking out the trash and is greeted by a young girl, his neighbor. He responds kindly and then heads to work on the train. At his workplace, one of his junior colleagues asked him to review a settlement report. Sasaki offered some suggestions for improvement and kindly volunteered to handle the report. His colleague was pleased with this, and it made Sasaki think that the right person was chosen for the job. While working, Sasaki overheard a conversation about a girl who had adopted a cat. He found this intriguing and watched a cat video with great interest. He thought the cat was adorable and wished he could have a pet of his own someday. Sasaki's boss assigned him more work, which was quite typical in their average-sized company with average earnings and wages. Sasaki admitted that he was barely making ends meet, but he lacked the courage to switch jobs. The job market had not been kind to him in the past. However, Sasaki found fulfillment in having a job where he felt needed and believed he was contributing to society. After work, his junior colleague invited him to dinner, but Sasaki declined, mentioning that he was low on cash for the month. His colleague kindly offered to treat him, but Sasaki took a rain check, hoping for another invitation. Later that evening, Sasaki went to a convenience store to buy dinner. but had no luck in a lottery for a free item. He returned home, and the little girl from earlier welcomed him back. Sasaki had dinner while watching cat videos, thoroughly enjoying them. One day, Sasaki visited a pet store and noticed that the cats were quite expensive. He wished he could afford to have a pet, perhaps even a dog. As he browsed, he heard a bird chirping, and it sounded like it was saying "pick me." Curious, Sasaki followed the sound and discovered a Java sparrow. He found it cute and surprisingly affordable, priced at 3,000 yen. Sasaki decided to bring the sparrow home, feeling a bit lonely with his 40th birthday approaching. Sasaki wondered about a suitable name for the sparrow. And to his surprise, the sparrow introduced itself as Pircarlo, an inhabitant of another world and a star sage. Sasaki thought this bird was quite talkative, even for its species. Despite thinking that Pircarlo was already a splendid name, Sasaki decided to name the bird Peeps. This choice didn't seem to please the bird, but Sasaki found even its displeasure cute. Sasaki couldn't believe he was having a normal conversation with a bird. He remembered what Yamada from the pet shop had said about getting Peeps accustomed to human contact and was determined to make it happen. Sasaki wanted to understand if Java sparrows were generally good at communicating, so he engaged in more conversation with Peeps. He asked Peeps about his dinner preferences, and to his surprise, the bird mentioned Kobe beef Shada-brand, claiming it was the best. Sasaki couldn't believe a bird had such refined tastes. He apologized to Peeps for being unable to afford it and offered pork ribs instead. Peeps responded by suggesting that Sasaki should earn the money if he didn't have it. He shared that he had been exiled from another world and had chosen this new form of life. Peeps believed in living life as one desired, rather than trying to fit in with others. Sasaki could relate to this, given his corporate job. Peeps explained that to achieve his goals, he needed assistance from someone in this world, and he hoped Sasaki would help him accumulate riches. Sasaki tells Peeps that he'll do anything for him. Then, Peeps uses magic to create a special bond between them. He gives some of his magic powers to Sasaki and tells him they're now connected. Peeps asks Sasaki to open his cage. Even though Sasaki is confused, he decides to go along with it and opens the cage. Peeps sits on Sasaki's shoulder, which makes Sasaki feel happy. The bird says he can use his old magic powers through Sasaki's body. Next, Peeps uses a spell to take Sasaki to a different world. Sasaki is amazed to see this new place. Peeps tells him this is where he used to live before he became a bird. They're in a town called Batrium in a kingdom. The story then shifts to Sasaki at his office. His coworker is surprised to see Sasaki there so early since everyone else is late because of a train delay. He wonders if Sasaki started getting up earlier. Sasaki says no, and then his coworker asks to talk privately. In private, the coworker suggests that they start a new business together. He plans to quit his job next month and thinks having someone experienced like Sasaki would be helpful. He promises Sasaki a better deal than his current job. Sasaki asks for time to think about it, mentioning he's busy with personal stuff. His coworker is surprised when Sasaki says he just got a pet. Sasaki felt that what was happening was just as he had expected, but he wanted to clarify that he wasn't making things up. His life had taken a remarkable turn since his visit to another world, and he had a new goal in mind. Sasaki mentioned that thanks to Peeps' teleportation ability, he could now avoid crowded trains, which had made his life much more pleasant. Because of this newfound convenience, Saki agreed with Peeps' idea of establishing a business between the two worlds. As a result, he started buying some items to sell in the other world. Initially, he had aspirations to trade with upper-class nobles, but he realized that it might be challenging to start with them right away. So, they decided to begin by doing business with the town's local merchants first. Sasaki purchased the necessary items and even won a chocolate bar in a lottery. Upon returning home, the little girl next door welcomed him back. Hearing her stomach growling, Sasaki kindly gave her the chocolate bar, explaining that he didn't like chocolate and had won it for free. Then, he headed inside and ventured into the other world with his goods. In the other world, Sasaki visited the Hime Trading Company, which was run by the town's nobles. He asked Peeps if he should enter the company with Peeps perched on his shoulder, and Peeps informed him that Sasaki could consider him as his familiar. Sasaki successfully sold the items he had brought with him for 400 gold coins, noting that if converted, it would amount to 400 million yen. He also remarked on the high prices of crafted goods in this world. Mark, the company's president, inquired about the source of Sasaki's pens and paper. Sasaki couldn't reveal his source but made a promise not to sell those items to any other store as compensation. Sasaki continued to travel between the two worlds to conduct his business and explore the local cuisine in the other world. Peeps also provided him with lessons on magic. Sasaki attempted to learn the teleportation spell from Peeps, but he found it too complex and decided to take his time to master it gradually. One day, during a break at his office, Sasaki had some spare time and decided to practice casting spells. He recited the incantation for a fire spell and miraculously managed to invoke it successfully on his very first try. But this activates the fire alarm and Sasaki runs away from the scene. Later, he pays a visit to Viscount Muller, the noble who rules this land, and the Viscount carefully examines the goods he brought. Seeing this, Sasaki realizes that he can't simply bring anything here, and he should be more selective about his products in the future. Muller inquires if these goods are common in Sasaki's continent or considered special items accessible only to a select few, like the nobility. Sasaki explains that only a few people possess these goods, and Muller ponders if this implies that Sasaki holds a high status in his own right. He expresses his reluctance to engage in one-sided dealings with someone of equal status to a noble, and Sasaki understands the need to respond carefully. He then shares his story, stating that he is a craftsman who ended up on this continent after his ship wrecked. The goods he brought today are those he had with him, as well as new ones he crafted. Muller comprehends the situation and proposes that Sasaki sells his goods to the Hime Trading Company from now on, with the possibility of bringing some directly to him. He promises to purchase them at a premium price and grants Sasaki permission to visit his mansion whenever he pleases. Muller encourages Sasaki to inform him of anything noteworthy in town that could benefit his territory. This connection with the feudal lord helps Sasaki's trade between the two worlds run smoothly. With his sales, progress in learning magic, and management of his restaurant, Sasaki's life in the other world is becoming more comfortable. Later, while heading to his office, Sasaki attends his junior's farewell party, where they enjoy food and drinks. During the party, news reports about a random attacker on the loose, and Sasaki's junior asks him if he has considered going independent. Sasaki wonders why his junior is so insistent, and his junior mentions that Sasaki seems full of energy lately, radiating an I can do it aura. Sasaki jokingly attributes it to his new bed, which allows him to sleep better. He's been staying in an inn in the other world where the beds are quite large, so his own bed at home feels cramped now. He contemplates switching between the two beds. On his way home after the party, he encounters a dangerous situation. He narrowly dodges ice shards hurled at him and witnesses a man using superpowers to attack a woman. Initially, he considers fleeing but becomes concerned for the woman's safety, suspecting that the attacker may be the one from the news. Sasaki intervenes by using an ice shard to freeze the assailant, though he doesn't want to kill him. He's unsure how to stop the spell, but the woman intervenes, turning the ice into water, and then points a gun at Sasaki. She inquires if Sasaki is a psychic and where he's from. She asks if he was the one who used the ice attack. Sasaki confirms his involvement and explains that he recently discovered these powers. The woman is astonished that she was saved by a random psychic and asks Sasaki to come with her, assuring him that she won't harm him. Sasaki wonders if they might be magicians like him and hopes to learn more from her. He requests permission to go home first and change clothes, as he'll be staying the night. Sasaki explains that he has work the following day, but the woman tells him not to worry as her organization will handle it. Later, Sasaki shares all the details with Peeps, who remarks that he can't sense any mana from the woman. Peeps suggests that she might be using a different phenomenon from magic, and speculates that their worlds might have similar phenomena but operate on entirely different principles. Sasaki realizes that this could be a groundbreaking discovery, and Peeps agrees that they should learn more from her. Sasaki invites Peeps to accompany him, and Peeps agrees. Sasaki is about to leave when his neighbor, the little girl, asks if he's going out. Sasaki confirms this, and she expresses sympathy for him being out so late. She then asks if they can talk for a moment, but Sasaki, in a hurry, suggests they chat another time. The girl agrees, and Sasaki proceeds to meet with the woman, introducing himself as Hoshizaki. Sasaki, accompanied by his pet sparrow, heads to the organization with Hoshizaki. During their journey, she explains to Sasaki that psychics are individuals whose powers spontaneously manifest, similar to magicians. The manifestation rate is 1 in every 100,000 people, and once the abilities appear, they don't change. These abilities vary from person to person, and while there's no record of someone manifesting additional abilities, their existing powers can grow stronger with use. Hoshizaki reveals that her ability allows her to manipulate water movement and temperature, which Sasaki finds distinct from magic. Hoshizaki mentions that many of these abilities are dangerous, and some psychics turn to crime. Her role is to apprehend such individuals, which surprises Sasaki. She explains that as a general rule, anyone who manifests psychic abilities must register with the country's organization for managing psychics. Sasaki admits he didn't know such an organization existed, to which Hoshizaki responds that it's a national secret. They arrive at the organization's building, known as the Paranormal Phenomenon Countermeasure Bureau, and Hoshizaki informs Sasaki that this will be his workplace from now on. Sasaki is taken aback by this revelation, as he hadn't anticipated joining the organization. Hashizaki mentions that she registered him a while ago and ushers him inside. Hashizaki tells Sasaki that he can expect favorable treatment, as he'll be considered a government official and receive a handsome salary. She mentions that he'll learn more during training and asks him about his powers. Sasaki, wanting to avoid combat, downplays his abilities, stating that he can only shoot icicles, which he demonstrates. Observing this, Hashizaki realizes that Sasaki can create ice from nothing, which excites her. She explains that she can manipulate water's movement and temperature but cannot create water, requiring her to carry water bottles. With Sasaki around, she would no longer have to worry about that and could undertake more perilous missions. Sasaki thinks she might be a workaholic and suspects she's already planning his involvement in her next mission. He expresses a preference for safe tasks aligned with his skills. Hashizaki mentions that a psychic's paycheck has no limit, and they earn more the harder they work. Sasaki finds himself in a room at the bureau and wishes he could sleep. However, he needs to stock up and visit the other world. He also has to pay French and decides not to use his magic here to avoid surveillance. He takes a walk with Peeps, who informs him that they are being followed. Sasaki anticipated this and knows that stocking up is impossible. He wants to explain his situation to everyone at the bureau and hopes they can help. Peeps suggests that several hours in the other world will only be a few minutes here, so Sasaki should go there under the pretext of using the restroom. Sasaki teleports to the other world from a convenience store restroom, informs Mark about needing more time for their next deal, and pays French's wages. The next morning, someone rings Sasaki's doorbell at 6 a.m. It turns out to be Hashizaki, who tells him it's time for work. Sasaki hesitates, wanting to report to someone higher up and verify if this is a legitimate workplace. Hashizaki expresses annoyance with his hesitation and suggests they stop by the bureau on the way. She asks him to get dressed. The section chief of Hashizaki's department, Akutsu, arrives and comments on Hashizaki's enthusiasm for work but advises her not to involve Sasaki without permission. Akutsu introduces himself as Sasaki's immediate superior and gives Sasaki a new phone. He explains that they will contact him using this phone and asks him to carry it at all times for emergencies. Sasaki isn't too happy about having to carry the phone around, and he considers leaving it in the other world to avoid being tracked. Akutsu, his superior, then leaves, telling Sasaki to contact him if needed. The scene shifts to Sasaki undergoing a medical examination at the bureau and learning more about the agency. He discovers that the bureau is a secret government ministry, and employees must keep its existence hidden. They are officially considered police sergeants but can't reveal their true roles to outsiders. Sasaki realizes this explains why Hashizaki carries a gun and asks about her, suspecting he might be partnered with her. People tell him she can be troublesome. Sasaki finishes his training and receives an allowance of 1 million yen for job preparations. He decides to use this money to stock up and returns home, where he meets the little girl from earlier. She gives him cookies as thanks for the chocolate and asks if the woman with him is his girlfriend. Sasaki clarifies that she's his superior, and the girl is surprised she looks so young. Afterward, Sasaki hears Peeps making noise and takes him for a walk. Peeps informs him that someone bugged his place while he was out. Sasaki asks if they saw him checking the internet, but Peeps says no. Sasaki then disables the camera and microphone at his house. Akutsu calls and mentions Sasaki's talent, but Sasaki asks him not to spy on him again, or it will affect his cooperation. Akutsu apologizes, explaining it was a test to see how Sasaki would react. He believes Sasaki's honesty and skills are valuable for managing psychics. Sasaki understands but remains cautious of Akutsu. As Sasaki contemplates his situation, Peeps wonders if he'll stock up on supplies that night. Sasaki decides to do it another time and realizes his dream of a relaxing life in another world is still distant. Meanwhile, Akutsu sees potential in Sasaki's skills for the organization. This brings an end to our episode. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.